Okay, so I teach English, and mainly the 1010 courses, which, you know, the 101, the dreaded 101, which they used to call, you know, euphemistically speaking, the gatekeeper course, right? I always call them head cutter courses. I try not to make it a head chopping course, but you know, this is brutal. And students have all these dreadful ideas of grammar. And so the problem is, how do you teach grammar? How does it stick with them after the course is over? Because all the research shows that if you teach grammar the way I'm going to show you how I used to teach it, it stays with them and then it's gone within 6 months, right? And the problem is, I go over comma rules, and I'll show you what I mean the old-fashioned way right here. You go over comma rules this way, and I still use this, but not as often. So this is sort of the really old-school way, right? You do this, and they mark where the comma goes. And it works as far as getting the principle out. But does it show up in their writing? That's not as much as you would like. So one of the ways you want to encourage that, and when you do the research into neuroscience, instead of the way the human brain works, it's all about transfer. How do you get the knowledge to transfer from one domain, this, to a paper, to a resume, to a proposal, to a white paper, to an executive summary? And this alone doesn't seem to have the best results. Right? So what do they recommend? They recommend multiple context, right? So this plus another activity, another course, a biology exam, an English department, we have technical writing. So that's, you know, the whole writing across the disciplines. That's where that came back. You want writing here, there, everywhere. It can't just be this. And this is the old school way. So, ITPD 3, I was hoping to engage more technology instead of just this. There's other ways to play with this. You use the whiteboards. It's really helpful. But everyone now has a smartphone, right? Literally all my students, every single one. I figured there'd be a few that didn't. I think one didn't. And so I just gave them my iPad and I took care of that. So every single one. So maybe they missed a car payment, but they had their smartphone, right? So, and literally, they tell me that way, I can't afford this, but I got my smartphone. So hey, makes it easy on us, right? So what to do? Well, yeah, what to do. So I'm trying to find ways to engage them on grammar. And I learned long ago, just teach a few grammar concepts in 1010 because we have a lot of other stuff to cover. Teach the basics, they'll at least get to a certain level. If you spend all day on subordinate, you know, can put subordinate clauses, all the different, no, I can't get into all that in 1010, just can't do it. You probably do accept that, right? Yeah. So hopefully when she gives them to me, they're ready to go. So, Ed was nice enough to point out several apps. Some of them I found, some of them he found. So maybe I'll just walk through these rather than show you the PowerPoint, which I just briefly explained. So, you know, gamify. See this business here? Let's go back. I see this term here, gamify, at the bottom. That is kind of key when you're teaching this. If you just do the worksheet, fine, we did it, move on. But if you put an incentive, you make it a game, it engages sort of it actually is fun for them. I mean, imagine that, teaching grammar is fun, right? No one thinks of that horrible sheet, and you want to leave, you get a headache. This makes it fun, but you have to, I learned this quickly, you have to put a little carrot at the end of the road. And for me, the carrot's always extra credit on the quiz, so something substantive. And so even the students who come in late and are dragging, they actually start paying attention. They're like, oh, I need that extra credit. So they actually looked at the rules. So I'm going to go over a few apps here. First one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on is Quizlet. I won't spend much time on that because it doesn't do everything I'd like it to do. One of the keys I found, again, ITPD3 was great on this. Make sure they're as free as possible as far as money wise, because students just don't have the money for all the book prizes. So all the apps I'm showing you were free, or at least mostly free. At least a part of it's free. The part you care about is free. So Quizlet. So this is one I cooked up. For my purposes, this is mainly a sort of flashcard type exercise. It's a very quick review for them. And there's audio, which does pretty well. And the audio works on this one.
Fanboy.
So it does all right. And the audio does okay. But this is just a very simple way for them to go and review what we've already done. Now, one thing I'd like to do in the future, this is my first semester playing with this, have them come up with definitions, right? Now, and it's theirs. And so every semester you get a new set of definitions. They say, oh, that's right, that's that thing. So it's not English jargon. The other thing I might employ more is this little game. This is not one of the ones I've tried. This is called a scatter game. I'm going to show you some of the other apps, because I know some of you are doing this. This is one where you match terms. So you can call a student up here and see the timer. Student the best time. So if you see something like this, semicolon, what does that do? I won't ask you guys. Anybody know what that does? No. Joins two sentences. So join they are. And watch what happens. They should go away. And if you get something wrong, like this, where is it? That. See how it bounces somewhere else? And that just sort of punishes you. So again, have a carrot at the end of it, and you get some extra credit. All right, that was, I thought, a pretty easy one. There's other things on there. But I did want to get to something I'm going to use a lot more, which is Socratic. Is anyone familiar with Socratic? All right, so when you first pull up Socratic, you're not going to have any quizzes, right? You're not going to have any questions to play with. So your job is to go in and make one. You see where it says Manage Quizzes? I'm going to show you one I created. And my quizzes. And see where it says Comma King? Right? So hopefully if you do this, you're the Comma King or Comma Queen. Or Comma Diva or whatever it is. Right? So I made 20. That might be a bit much. But look, it's basic multiple choice. So what happens is they're going to log in on their smartphone. And there's several ways to handle this. They can either do it the traditional way where they just pick the answer and it's a straightforward test. Or they can do the more exciting thing, where they'll answer questions like this, but you can do something called Space Race, which is a lot of fun. So what happens here is, look, you pick the quiz you want, pick the number of teams. I recommend you pick the teams for them so you balance out strong, because a lot of times the friends tend to have the same level, and they win automatically, and that's no fun. And they've updated this so you don't have to use rockets, you can use unicorns or bees or whatever. I'll put a big guy on. And what happens is, look, they're going to have to do all these questions, and these will move forward. So whoever gets to the end, one of these bears will move forward. So if you were all doing this now, Team Blue might be ahead, and you're waiting on who wins. And whoever wins, you give them the extra credit. And while they're doing this, they're playing with each of the sentences. It's another little contest. And they all have their smartphones. You'll notice, if you give them a sheet of paper, they stare at the sheet of paper, okay. Use a smartphone, they're all what's she doing? That kind of thing. And guess what they're doing? They're looking at the sentences. They're looking at the structure. I always found it hard when I first started teaching to get people engaged on looking at, dependent clauses. And how do you get someone engaged if they have no experience? This is a great way to do it. To show you what it looks like when it's semi-complete is this. So you see there? That's the case what it might look like towards the end. And so what you do when they're doing the quizzes is you go on and you look at this color here. I don't know what color it is. Was that pink? Looks like pink to me, right? You say, hey, what's going on with the pink team? And you'll see them, they start getting pressure and they start laughing. I can't. Wait, what's this comma? Why? And that's okay. If they have trouble, some get frustrated. That's what you can do. Go back to Manage Quizzes, My Quizzes, and you can just pull up the quiz you were playing with, right? And do it the old-fashioned way. So let's say they had trouble with which of the following is correct. They had trouble with this business here, this dependent clause. You just go over the old-fashioned way, and they'll go, oh, can we do that? The next question is, can we do it again? Yeah, because now they want to apply what they learned, which is great. Thing that we were talking about is how to assess some of these activities. Socratic, again, when you're done with the space race, maybe I should show you that. When you're done, let me go back to the space. Here's the space race. So let's say we're finished. Look what it says, Get Report. You click that. I always have them email it to me as an Excel. And what that'll look like is this. Give it a second to pull up. I'll blow this. Why is it so much? Okay. So if you look here, this shows you the colors. It looks at the percentage that people did well on. So you can go through and see which items they're doing well on. The percentages aren't great because some of the questions I had weren't quite fine-tuned. My first outing on this. But you can see how it's color-coded by team. You also have the students over here. So if they're struggling on a particular item, again, dependent clauses or fanboys or appositives or anything, this will highlight that for you, and you'll be able to assess. And hopefully you do the quiz again, maybe a different quiz, and see if sort of that reteaching worked. And the worst kind of assessment is one that tells you what's wrong, but you don't get to go back and the whole point of assessment, right, is supposed to help the students. That's the idea anyway. Be cool. So you know how one of the biggest problems, even if you don't teach English, most of you probably deal with some sort of writing students have to produce of some sort, and what they never do is proofread, right? They just hit print and run away, right? It's a big problem, right? This is called, and this is free, okay? This is called the grading game. It has its own music. The setup of this game, so to speak, hear that music, right? I guess college teachers are supposed to listen to that music. Anyways, the setup is you're a TA, a teaching assistant, and you're grading for a big nasty professor. So your job is to find all the errors. If you don't, you get fired. Right? So that's the setup. So I have 2 students come up at a time, and they go through this, and it's all proofreading. So, watch what it says. You have 46 seconds to give Zoe a C, and there's 8 errors in this selection. And they get real nervous and they go, sitting here like you will go, oh, can't you see the error? Then when they get up here, they go, hey, this is much harder when you're actually the person.
Against time.
Yeah, it's time. Time really gets them going. So if you get something wrong, watch what happens to the time in the top left. So design, there's nothing wrong with that. So you lose seconds, right? So you don't want to do that. Now long now, why is now capitalized, right? It should be so.
Yeah, right.
So you just click on
This
And
is
that
a-
grade, you want that grade to go down, right? No, let's see the clock.
Years.
Yeah, that's what. See the grade dropping in the top right? I'm running out of time, of course.
Come after
Come after what? Yeah, see, it's much called B+. I want you to hear the sound effect if you don't do well, so. Because he gets really nasty. So the students are getting nervous. Why can't I find it? And it shows you the errors, so it's not just a game.
Well, there's another error too.
Right.
There should be a comma after 86. So it's too many pennies.
So he's mad, right? Since you're fired, you're out of the job, right? So the next pair comes up, and it's all about proofreading. And I picked the group that gets the lowest grade because you want to hurt these students, right? They always think the teachers as these evil people that are out of the sentence, right? They really got into it, and sure enough, it shows up in their papers because I'll say there's something wrong with that sentence, and they'll pick it up and go, I don't tell them what's wrong with the sentence, they pick it up. But they really, as a matter of fact, they wanted to do this more than once. I just tried it once. I gave them 5 points on a quiz, and it worked like a charm, really.
Oh, they were leaping out of their chair in order to volunteer to go up there.
And they would come
Finally,
in.
somebody beat the game.
Yeah, oh yeah, well there's the other.
How reliable do you think the content is?
I found it pretty reliable. And again, if there's an error, guess what? You can stop it right there and you can put it on the board. And that's great. And they go, oh, well, we're better than that, right? That's the idea. Like you said there was a comma missing. See? So he's real mad or whatever it is. But, yeah, sure. We're done. I think we're about there. Okay. My point is, let me wrap up. There are a lot of other apps out there. I will not go through them. Free is your friend. Okay. All the students and all the feedback said they liked this in conjunction with. They didn't want one or the other. They really wanted both. They didn't want the old school. They wanted both.